Take a minute to consider the interventions, strategies, or habits you were taught in school or by your supervisor during your independent fieldwork. Think about what interventions you frequently use when working with learners. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Picture your current interactions with your most challenging learners. Envision your learner flopping to the ground, hitting the RBT, throwing objects, or pushing materials off the table. If you did direct work as an RBT, think about a learner you worked with engaging in any of these behaviors. Picture how you were taught to respond to these behaviors. How do you or your RBTs currently respond to these types of behavior? Have your practices changed since you first entered the field? How do your current practices make you feel at the end of the day? Take just another few seconds to connect with this. Go ahead and open your eyes if you still have them closed. If you're here, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your response to your learner's challenging behavior doesn't leave you feeling warm and fuzzy at the end of the day, and you're looking to find a better way. Or maybe you've started to learn about compassionate care and Assent-based practice, but you're not sure how to integrate it into your practice. Many of these practices that I was taught in school or during my independent fieldwork didn't leave me feeling great. I was excited about the progress that my learners made, but sometimes I hated the methods that we used to get there. My background in early childhood education and my experience as a preschool teacher felt at odds with the way I was supposed to respond to my learners. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Amelia Dalphonse. I'm a BCBA and I co-founded Master ABA with my twin sister, Diana Kelly. Through Master ABA, we help BCBAs gain confidence in their skills so they can have a greater impact with their learners. Our focus is on ethical, compassionate, learner-centered practices. This course is eligible for CEUs, but you must watch the video all the way to the end. There will be a short quiz at the end of the lesson. You must also mark the mission accomplished lesson complete to receive your CEU certificate. Also in the mission accomplished lesson is information about how to update your BCBA number in your account. Please update your number before you complete the quiz. This will ensure that your certificate populates correctly. You can find your certificate by logging into your account on Master ABA Academy. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the sidebar menu on the left side of your screen and click on My Certificates. If for some reason you miss a step or have any trouble with your certificate, email us at support@masteraba.com. We're happy to help with anything that you need. You can find the lesson notes along with other helpful resources in the Resources tab and all the references in the References tab. Throughout the course, feel free to pause the video to take notes or to practice as we go along. Take time to think about how the interactions you've had with your learners in the past. This will help you connect the strategies I'm going to talk about with your actual work so you can use them after the course is finished. I have a lot I want to cover today. By the end of this course, you will understand the concept of Assent, be able to assess learner preferences and interpret communicative intent with both vocal and non-vocal communicators. Understand the critical ethical considerations surrounding the integration of Assent in practice. Implement Assent-based practices. Utilize effective communication and collaboration strategies to involve learners, families, and other stakeholders in the Assent process. And monitor and adapt interventions based on Assent. My plan is that you will not only gain a better understanding of Assent, but you will also be ready to integrate Assent into your practice ethically and effectively. Those sound like some big promises, so I want to jump right in. So why is the topic of Assent becoming so much more prevalent? The answer lies in the evolution of the field. ABA's foundations laid in the early 20th century with pioneers like B.F. Skinner leading the way in behaviorism. Early ABA focused on observable behavior and the ways in which it could be modified throughout the use of reinforcement and environmental manipulations. While those foundational principles remain central to ABA, the application and ethical considerations of those interventions have undergone significant development. In the early days, ABA was revolutionary in providing a structured framework to understand and change behavior. However, as with any emerging field, the initial approaches were not without their flaws. Early practices were often criticized for being overly rigid and for not adequately considering the individual's feelings or perspectives. This video from the Carbone Clinic shows Vincent Carbone implementing an ABA assessment in 1997. As you watch the video, pay close attention to the adult's responses to the child's attempts to escape different demands. As you watch this video, think about your own practices. I'm going to be flipping back and forth a few times during this course, so bear with me. I don't know about you, but that video is hard for me to watch. And yet I know that some of my interactions with learners in the past have been just as ugly. Watching the video, would you say that the child is treated with dignity and respect? Is the child's autonomy encouraged and supported? Is she given choices, true choices, in not only her activities, but also what her body is doing? He's not physically abusing her, but I can see an argument that this could be a traumatic event for her. Dr. Carbone is a respected leader in our field. I have complete respect for him, and I'm in no way trying to discredit the work that he's done. He has actually removed many of his videos from YouTube that don't align with our current understanding of best practices. I'm sure that he no longer uses these same practices, but I wanted to use this as an opportunity to help you understand some of the history of ABA. I wanted to share this video for several reasons. First, many of you might be less familiar with these practices if you're newer to the field. Second, I want these practices to be forefront in your mind as we continue to talk about why Assent is such an important component of quality ABA programming. Over the past decade or more, we have developed a better understanding of the impact some of the more intrusive interventions have, even when our intentions and the science are both good. Autistics are speaking out all over the internet and in person against either ABA entirely or against these more traditional practices. There's no doubt that early approaches to ABA, especially the practices created by Lovaas, looked at autistics as something less than human, as something that needed to be fixed. Lovaas, is famous for having made the following comment about autistic children. You have the raw materials, but you have to build the person. 50 years ago, there was a belief that autism was something to treat or cure. And to some extent, sometimes that belief still exists today. Part of what sustains this belief stems from the existing medical model where ABA has been used to, quote, treat the symptoms of autism. With ABA services being covered by insurance companies, there's a need for ABA practitioners to use language that pathologizes autism in order to be paid for the service. These companies often require that treatment specifically measures and addresses the symptoms of autism. But autism is different than a medical condition that must be cured. If you have cancer, you're absolutely looking for a cure. The autistic community is standing up and saying that they don't want a cure, but that doesn't eliminate the need that many of them have. Some families are struggling with extreme behaviors and have no other way to help their child. Some can't get their child to wear clothes or safely take them into the community. Others engage in dangerous aggression, SIB, or eloping. I'm sure many of you are working with these children. Many autistics rightfully see ABA as manipulative, coercive, and harmful. If you haven't watched videos or read articles about this, I encourage you to do so. The future of our field depends on us adapting our practices to ensure we are benefiting our learners and not causing harm. I want to share this video with you. This video is by Paige Layell, who is an autistic who speaks out against ABA. I'm only going to share a small clip of this video, but I will link to the full video in the resources tab.
Lovaas is the one that created ABA therapy. And ironically, he's also the one that created gay conversion therapy. They are very similar. You cannot make a gay person straight, and you cannot make an autistic person not autistic. It was a while ago, and so I'll give it to you, ABA therapists. Things have changed since then. The main ideas of this are horrid, and you can change it as much as you want. It's not going to work. Let me read a quote to you that Lovaas said about autistic kids. You see, you start pretty much from scratch when you work with an autistic child. You have a person in the physical sense. They have hair, a nose, and a mouth, but they are not people in the psychological sense. We are off to the greatest of starts. One way to look at the job of helping autistic kids is to see it as a matter of constructing a person. You have the raw materials, but you have to build the person. So that's great. We are not whole people. We're not even people. So that's amazing. That's an amazing reason to start a therapy. 40 hours a week is still the recommended time for autistic kids to do therapy. That is a full-time job. 40 hours a week is a full-time job. That is more than they attend school a week. Can you imagine attending school and then attending therapy? That is so unfair. The main goal that Lovaas wanted is to mold autistic children into typically developing children, basically to try to make them look as neurotypical as possible. There are positive and negative reinforcements to get the ideal behavior. And a lot of the negatives are now taken away from ABA therapy, which congratulations, they should. And some of these include electric shocks, which still happens, withholding food, which still happens, withholding affection, which still happens, withholding toys or play, which still happens, being put in an isolation room, which still happens, being restrained, which still happens. One other thing that a lot of ABA therapists say is that there are no negative reinforcements now, it's only positive reinforcements. If you withhold a positive thing, that's negative reinforcement. That is a punishment. My first thing, and this is, I think, the most important thing, autism is not a behavioral disorder. Autistics are not a sum of their behaviors. Behavior is a secondary reaction to something else going on. Behavior is communication. Behavior is trying to communicate what is wrong. If you change that way of communication and take that away from children, you're showing them that how they feel doesn't matter, that what's going on doesn't matter, that only how they look to you matters. It awards compliance. And to modify behavior does not do anything for the initial reason the behavior is even there. I have people ask me, my autistic child doesn't have meltdowns, are they not autistic? And I say, they're happy. Autistic people don't have to have meltdowns. If they're happy, they won't. Why would you want to mask the behavior and not get to the root of the problem of why they are unhappy? You can modify behavior all you want, and that does not change anything that's going on internally. My other problem with ABA therapists will argue some people are not doing ABA correctly, and that's why you don't like it. The correct way of doing ABA is fine. No, it's not, because autistic people are not a sum of their behaviors. So if you are doing ABA correctly, that is the most harmful way. My other problem with this is that 99% of things autistic people do, behaviors that we do, are not harmful and do not need to be changed and should not be changed. We need to get out of the mindset that autistic people need to behave and act like neurotypicals. That is untrue. That is ableist. What we need is, as a society, as a world, to accommodate autistic people. If a behavior is harmful, sure, that, an autistic child should not be hitting themselves or other people. Fair. Why are they doing that? How can we prevent that feeling in the first place? How can we have autistic children understand their feelings and emotions and how to deal with them better? It shouldn't be a matter of, we're not going to change the environment to suit you. You're just going to have to get used to the environment and hide the pain that you feel while you're in it. You are teaching the child that their thoughts and emotions are not theirs to act on, that they need to be people pleasers. Their body is not their own. Their thoughts are not their own. How can someone be independent when they're dependent on you for what they need to do? What does that teach children in the future? The idea is a lot of the time independence. I don't see that being independent. Will autistic people not just do that for the rest of their lives? Wait to see what other people want them to do always. That is incredibly dangerous and manipulative.
I think Paige is incredibly well-spoken and brave for sharing her perspective so publicly. I would have loved to share more of the video, but I have a lot I want to cover, and you can watch the rest of the video on your own. Although in this clip, Paige doesn't specifically use the term coercion, that's actually what she talks a lot about in the rest of her video. Sidman, 1993, described coercion as the control of behavior through punishment or negative reinforcement. Coercive methods are common in parenting practices and can include things like timeout, grounding, or the removal of privileges. You might believe that you don't engage in abusive or coercive practices, but it's time to take an honest look at the strategies that we're currently using in the field. One practice that has created the biggest uproar against ABA is the use of electric shock by the Judge Rottenberg Center in Canton, Massachusetts. According to Rualter and Rath 2023, this practice is still being used. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how the intervention is used, but this is a practice that clearly falls under the definition of coercion that we just talked about. I'm not going to debate this practice. Obviously, this intervention is an extreme example, but coercion is a slippery slope. And I want you to be aware of what is currently being used under the umbrella of ABA. Differential reinforcement procedures, which are a cornerstone of ABA services, can inadvertently lean towards coercion, especially when incorporating extinction procedures. Withholding attention for an undesirable behavior, such as ignoring a child's tantrums, results in extinction, as we all know. Unlike positive punishment, which adds an aversive stimulus, or negative punishment, which removes a reinforcing one, extinction is more subtle, creating a non-event. I was told in my master's programming that extinction is not punishment because of this fact, that it's a non-event. But it does result in the reduction of behavior. And so this seems like a very fine line to me. This becomes even more problematic with interventions that involve escape extinction. I'm sure we have all experienced situations where we present a demand and we insist that the child complete whatever task we presented. I was taught that you must follow through with all demands that are placed, no exceptions. Looking back, that seems really silly and not at all practical. I remember about 15 years ago, I worked with a 4-year-old who I will call Oliver. He was very oppositional, and one of the biggest meltdowns happened in a library when I told him it was time to play with trains. Literally, all he ever wanted to do was play with trains, so I didn't anticipate the response that I got. Let's just say that the police weren't called, but we weren't invited back to that library. One of the moments that I'm least proud of in my career was with him, and it could have been completely avoided. I worked with him in the community and brought him home at the end of a session one day. It had been a fine session with not a lot to report. I had just finished giving his mother the rundown on the session, and I was ready to head off to pick up my next learner. Before leaving, I looked at my learner who was standing in the kitchen. I waved and said, "Goodbye, Oliver. I will see you tomorrow." He didn't respond. He just stared blankly at me. I prompted him to say goodbye because we were working on social skills. It seemed so simple, and I did it without any thought at all. At this point, there were a lot of things going through my head. I had been working with the mother about the importance of following through when she asked him to do something. I also needed to leave to go get my next learner, but I felt like I put a demand in place and he should say goodbye. So what would you do in this situation? I can tell you with 100% certainty that I would do things differently now. But in the moment, my training kicked in, and I told myself that if I let him escape this demand, that he would never follow my demands when we were in the community. I don't remember how long it took, but I stayed in that house and held on to that demand until he said goodbye. It wasn't pretty, and it went on far longer than it should have. I was late for my next learner, and he literally learned nothing from the exchange other than that I'm more stubborn than he is. At one point, he hid under the dining room table, and I crouched next to him and prompted him to say goodbye. I never put my hands on him, but looking back, this was just a dumb response. I had my supervisor's voice going through my head the whole time. He was famous for saying that everything in their world stops until they comply. I didn't like this part of my job, but it was hard for me to argue when the science supported this. Obviously, this did not help me build a stronger relationship with Oliver, and I had to do more work after this incident to recover from it. There was absolutely no risk in leaving, even if he didn't say goodbye. Many of you probably weren't trained this rigidly, but when you go back a decade or more, these were the regular practices. We were told that the child must comply with any demand from an adult. What I learned from this experience was to be far more careful before placing demands, not that I didn't need to follow through with the demands that I placed. I learned that lesson much later on in my career. Extinction, especially escape extinction, is coercive and not a practice we need to be utilizing. We have so many more tools available to us that we can use to accomplish the same ultimate outcome. The matching law provides the solution to the problem of reinforcing challenging behavior, even escape maintain behavior. The matching law states that the rate of an individual's responses is directly proportional to the rate of reinforcement received for those responses, compared to the rate of other available responses and their reinforcements. That's pretty wordy. A simpler way of thinking about it is that behavior goes where reinforcement flows. This principle facilitates a nuanced understanding of how behaviors are influenced by their consequences and helps us understand why extinction really isn't necessary, at least in most situations. At its core, the matching law suggests that individuals distribute their behaviors in a way that match the distribution of reinforcements they receive. That is, the more or better reinforcement a behavior comes into contact with, the more likely it is to occur. Reinforcing challenging behavior might seem counterintuitive at first glance, However, understanding the matching law allows you to create contrast between the reinforcers available for challenging behaviors and reinforcers available for alternative behaviors. By systematically identifying the reinforcements contributing to challenging behaviors, we can modify contingencies or introduce alternative, more potent reinforcers for alternative adaptive replacement behaviors. This strategy approach does not simplistically endorse reinforcing challenging behavior, but rather emphasizes the importance of reinforcing alternative behaviors that serve the same function for the individual, but with reinforcers of a greater magnitude. The magnitude of the reinforcer relates to the quality, quantity, frequency, or some other element of the reinforcer that makes it more valuable than the reinforcer available for challenging behavior. Understanding this concept makes it easier to understand how and why implementing Assent-based practices works. Assent is a component of compassionate care. We offer another CEU course called Beyond Behavior, a trauma-informed approach in ABA practice, which dives deeper into the broader topic of compassionate care. I will link to that in the resources tab of this lesson. The shift towards more compassionate ABA practices is related to the growing recognition of the importance of respecting the dignity and autonomy of individuals receiving behavior analytic services. This understanding didn't emerge overnight, but as it was a gradual process influenced by several critical factors, including advancements in research, increased advocacy, the ethical evolution that includes Assent in the ethics code for behavior analysts, and the drive toward more learner-centered approaches. In the interest of time, I'm going to focus primarily on Assent, but I think it's important to consider where it fits into the bigger picture of compassionate care. So let's define Assent so we're all on the same page. Assent, as defined by the BACB and the Ethics Code for Behavior Analysts, is vocal or non-vocal behavior that can be taken to indicate willingness to participate in research or behavioral services. That's on page 7 of the Ethics Code for Behavior Analysts. Assent is the individual's explicit or implicit willingness to participate in the learning process. The code discusses Assent further in section 2.11, obtaining informed consent. It states behavior analysts are responsible for knowing about and complying with all conditions under which they are required to obtain informed consent from their learners, stakeholders, and research participants before initial implementation of assessments or behavior change interventions, when making substantial changes to interventions, when exchanging or releasing confidential information or records. They are responsible for explaining, obtaining, reobtaining, and documenting required informed consent. They are responsible for obtaining assent from learners when applicable. Well, I'm happy to see that Assent has made it into the code. I'm disappointed that it was sort of tacked on to the end of this one like an afterthought. I would also argue that obtaining assent is always applicable. I can see only extreme examples where assent might not be applicable, such as stopping a child running into a busy street. But for everyday practices, you should be ensuring that you have your client's assent. Assent is different from consent, which is a legal agreement to participate and is always necessary. Assent, though not legally required, signifies the learner's choice to engage. Consent is provided by the person with the legal right to make decisions for an individual, which is often not our direct learners. Assent is our learner's agreement to participate in services. It's possible, even for those who cannot speak or functionally communicate, to demonstrate assent and assent withdrawal. Our strategies must therefore accommodate a wide range of interpreting an individual's willingness to participate, from verbal affirmations to more subtle behavioral cues. Focusing on obtaining assent during sessions reflects a commitment to honoring the autonomy and individuality of those that we serve. Autonomy is a fundamental ethical principle that underscores the right of individuals to make choices and control what happens to their bodies and lives. In behavior analysis, respecting autonomy involves acknowledging learners as agents capable of making decisions about their participation in assessment and intervention processes. This respect is not contingent upon the individual's capacities, but is a recognition of their inherent dignity as people. Dignity in this context is understood as an intrinsic value that does not vary with an individual's abilities or societal contributions. Dignity is the state or quality of being deserving of honor and respect. When behavior analysts seek assent, they are actively validating the dignity of the learner by acknowledging their right to be involved in decisions that affect them. This process communicates to learners that their perspectives and feelings are valued, fostering an environment where they are seen and treated as respected collaborators in their own behavioral interventions. Treating others with compassion, dignity, and respect is identified as one of the 4 core principles in the Ethics Code for Behavior Analysts on page 4 of the code. If you needed a more clear sign of permission to implement assent-based practices, I think this is it. The last 2 bullet points in this section specifically relate to the use of assent-based practices. Respecting and actively promoting learners' self-determination to the best of their abilities, particularly when providing services to vulnerable populations. Acknowledging that personal choice in service delivery is important by providing learners and stakeholders with needed information to make informed choices about services. Assent moves beyond mere respect for autonomy and dignity. It serves as a vehicle for empowerment and self-advocacy. By actively involving learners in the decision-making process, we empower them to take an active role in their treatment plans. This empowerment supports the development of self-advocacy skills, crucial for expressing personal needs, desires, and rights. The process of seeking assent educates learners about their ability to influence their environments and the course of their interventions. It conveys a vital message. Their voice matters. This understanding is the foundation of self-advocacy. As learners recognize their capacity to assent their preferences and boundaries, they also learn to navigate and advocate within a broader social and institutional context. We know that we are held to strict expectations that we use interventions founded in science. These interventions must be evidence-based and adhere to behavioral principles. Evidence-based practices are guided by empirical research, ensuring that the strategies and techniques employed have been proven effective. This scientific grounding is crucial for designing interventions that achieve meaningful and sustainable behavior change. When choosing which intervention to use in ABA sessions, we have the right and obligation to choose interventions that approach the learner with understanding, empathy, and respect for the learner's feelings, perspectives, and experiences. It involves recognizing the learner as a whole person, not just a set of behaviors to be modified. Compassionate care is about building a therapeutic relationship based on trust and mutual respect, which facilitates more personalized and effective interventions. Effective intervention planning requires finding the balance between these 2 key components. I'm in no way recommending that you relax your scientific standards. What I'm suggesting is that you look at the research and utilize interventions that are acceptable to your learners. Hopefully, you're all starting to see not only why assent is so vital, but also that it is scientifically sound. Now, I want to take a look at assent-based practices in action. Recognizing both verbal and nonverbal signs of assent, as well as indications of assent withdrawal, is vital. Identifying these signals enables us to ensure that interventions are conducted with the full cooperation and agreement of those that we serve. Assent can be conveyed through a variety of communication modes, not limited to verbal expressions. Recognizing assent involves tuning in to both the explicit and implicit signals that individuals share with us. Vocal expressions that indicate assent might include direct affirmations such as, yes, that's cool, or similar statements. Questions about the intervention indicating interest and willingness to participate. Positive vocalizations or laughter in response to the introduction or continuation of an intervention. Non-vocal indicators of assent might include nods or other affirmative gestures, maintained or initiated eye contact, signaling engagement, physiological signs of relaxation, such as a loose body positioning or leaning in toward the interventionist when the intervention is described or initiated, and active participation or cooperative behaviors towards the intervention tasks. Understanding these signs requires a nuanced awareness of the individual's usual communication patterns and adapting our observation skills accordingly. Greg Hanley calls these behaviors HRE, happy, relaxed, and engaged. Steve Ward refers to them as STEAM. Whatever you call it, the child is demonstrating assent, agreement with the interventions you're using, and it's a green light to keep doing what you're doing. Engagement and cooperation are further indicators of assent, but should not be blindly accepted as assent. Keep in mind that many of our learners have been taught that they must follow the directions of an adult. Engagement behaviors might look like active participation, the learner willingly taking part in the activities, following directions, or engaging in tasks with enthusiasm. Seeking interaction. The learner initiates or seeks out interaction with the practitioner or peers during the intervention. And finally, offering ideas or suggestions. Contributing ideas or suggestions related to the activities demonstrates a level of engagement and willingness to participate. Equally important is the ability to recognize when an individual may withdraw their assent. This might be less overt and requires careful attention to changes in behavior. Indicators of assent withdrawal might include verbal expressions of discomfort or refusal, such as saying stop or I don't want to do this anymore. Physical withdrawal or avoidance behaviors, such as turning away or stepping back. Decreased engagement or unresponsiveness to activities where they were previously active participation. And signs of distress or discomfort, such as frowning, crying, or increased agitation. Recognizing and respecting the signs of both assent and assent withdrawal is foundational to fostering trust and ensuring the dignity of those that we serve. Our role extends beyond intervention. We are partners in promoting autonomy and empowerment for those in our care. Practice identifying the physical signs of assent. This looks different for every learner. We often assume smiles and laughter are positive, affirming assent behaviors, but I worked with a learner where this wasn't the case. I worked with him out in the community, and other providers would often meet up with us and with their learners. One day we were at a local library with a couple other providers. My learner started jumping and laughing. The other providers commented that he seemed so happy. I knew this wasn't actually the case and warned them to just keep their distance. I told them laughing was actually one of his precursor behaviors to aggression. He was distressed and I had to figure out why. This is pretty uncommon, but take the time to really read each of your learners individually. Look for clues about their perception of each situation. Remember that this can look different day by day. This is where we truly start to analyze behavior. Let's look at what assent looks like during an ABA session. This video shows a boy learning his colors during a naturalistic teaching session. Watch for signs of assent and jot them down.
All right, I just went shopping. Okay, we gotta put our groceries away. Do you know how to do that? What'd you make? Noodle! I love noodles. Do you love noodles?
Yeah. These guys in there.
Those guys are in the fridge?
Yeah.
Ooh.
They're good. They're neat. Put in here.
Okay, can you put the yellow fruit away? Which one's the yellow? Oh, good trying.
No.
Yeah, stomp your feet. Yeah, put the yellow fruit away.
Yeah.
Yellow. Can say, Mom, that's not fruit. You want to boil it?
We need it.
Need a lid?
That's not fair.
Oh, good. It can't boil over. Ooh, can I have some noodles in my bowl?
Yeah. You need spoon.
I need a spoon. Where are we gonna get a spoon? Can I use this spoon?
That's an outfit.
That's an ouchie spoon. Let's see. Am I eating a yellow noodle?
Yeah.
No. What color is my noodle? What color is my noodle? Green. High five. Put your hands up in the air. Just don't care. Woohoo. Woohoo. All right, what about this? Is this a yellow noodle? Yeah! That's a yellow noodle! High five! Okay, let's put some more fruit away. Can you put the yellow fruit away? Yeah! That's yellow! Good job! Here's a purple fruit. What color is this fruit?
Orange.
Orange!
I love orange.
You love orange? Do rabbits eat carrots?
Yeah.
Can you show me hopping like a rabbit?
You hop. You put your hands right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Good job.
Woo! Good job! Hopping like a rabbit. Nice work.
It's orange.
It is an orange. Okay, I want you to put the yellow fruit away. Yellow lemon! Good job! Is it sour?
It's sour for you.
So sour! It's so sour for me!
It's sour for you.
It is sour for me!
But orange one.
We're gonna put the orange and the lemon away. That's a really good job, bud.
Orange juice.
Oh, you're making the orange juice? Okay, can I drink the orange juice?
Yeah. Yummy lemon flavor.
Yummy. Yes.
I love lemon flavor.
Yeah. Can you open the fridge, put the egg away, and then close the fridge?
We need to put mojito here.
Hey, remember, we're opening the fridge, putting the egg away, and closing the fridge. Good work, buddy.
We put this in there first. Down here.
Okay, last one. Can you put the yellow noodle in the bowl? Woo! Good job! Good job!
What signs of assent did you see? Put them in the comments below. Some of the things that I saw included that he was actively engaged with the therapist. At the very beginning of the video, he exclaimed, "Yay!" when the therapist said she just went shopping. He orients to her and makes bids for her attention. He's smiling and he's looking for her reaction to some of the things that he's doing. He responds to her questions. He's staying with the therapist and he's even making some suggestions. You heard him say, you need a spoon. So did you see something else? There's a lot of assent happening in this video that makes it pretty fun to watch. Let's take a look at one more short video clip to look at other signs of assent, because like I said, assent looks different in different people. This is a video from Fathering Autism. I want you to watch Abby for signs of assent. She's sitting with her mother, playing with some toys. Pay attention to her body language, her facial expressions, and her behavior. Make a note of some of these signs as you see them, and let me know what you see in the comments.
Oh my goodness! I am so proud of you! Put your hand up! Be proud, girl! And hey, give me a kiss! Give me a kiss! Good job! That's awesome! You're all done!
So what did you see from Abby? Here are some of the things that I saw. She was again actively engaged in the task. Abby's facial expressions are a bit more neutral, but she did show some smiles in this video. She looks at her mother, maybe looking for her approval. Her body is turned slightly away, but I think this is probably normal for her. Abby looks down after she completes the puzzle. It's not clear why she's doing this, and it's not necessarily a sign of a lack of assent. To me, it seems almost like she's trying to regulate her response to her mother's excitement. There might just be too much stimulation in the moment, and she's trying to regulate that. When she looks up at her mother's praise, she's smiling and touches her mother's face. Also take time to notice the assent withdrawal behaviors of your learners. Again, these will be somewhat different for every child. Some of these behaviors are going to be very clear and obvious, and others will be far more subtle. Don't be tempted to ignore the subtle signs. Just because you can push a child through a task because their behavior is not dangerous doesn't mean that this is the best way to support the child. Every child should have the right to assent to the services they receive. Remember, our goal is not just to implement interventions, but to empower and support those we work with, respecting their rights and preferences every step along the way. I know this flies in the face of conventional ABA practices, so you might experience some resistance as you try to implement the strategies we are going to talk about. Also take time to notice the assent withdrawal behaviors of your learners. Again, these will be somewhat different for every child. Some of these behaviors are going to be very clear and obvious, and others will be far more subtle. Don't be tempted to ignore the subtle signs. Just because you can push a child through a task because their behavior is not dangerous doesn't mean that this is the best way to support the child. Every child should have the right to assent to the services they receive. Remember, our goal is not just to implement interventions, but to empower and support those that we work with, respecting their rights and preferences every step of the way. I know that this flies in the face of conventional ABA practices, so you might experience some resistance as you try to implement the strategies we're going to talk about. We will cover some basic information about how to handle objections you might get from staff and parents. Although honestly, most are excited about this approach because it leads to a quicker reduction in challenging behavior. Now, I want to show you another video. This is another video from Fathering Autism. This time, I want you to pay attention to Abby's assent withdrawal behaviors. Make note of her facial expressions, body language, and behavior that might indicate that she doesn't want to participate in the activity.
All right, in 1 minute, we're going to do some chores, okay? Here, you can have your pillow back.
Should we do timers, like audible timers?
Yeah, we could do a timer. I was thinking that too. I need you to come put your clothes in the hamper. need you to put your pants away. Hey, let's put your pants away. You need to put your pants in the laundry. Do you need a break? Hey, do you need a break? Okay, here. Give me one. Cool, you can take a break.
The woman in this video is Abby's BCBA, who is teaching Abby to request a break by taking off an icon from a laminated board. I'm not in any way trying to be critical of the approach she's using. This is actually a similar. The woman in this video is Abby's BCBA, who is teaching Abby to request a break by taking off an icon from a laminated board. I'm not in any way being critical of her approach that she's using. This is similar to the way many of us have taught skills in the past. She's using least to most prompting to get Abby to take the icon. You can see her gesture to the board, see she then models the sign for break, then points to the board, and tries to do some full physical prompting. Ultimately, Abby takes the icon and gives it to her, earning a break. Some of Abby's assent withdrawal behaviors are pretty obvious. She's shaking her head no. She's looking away from the BCBA. She pulls her hand back when the BCBA touches it. These aren't dangerous behaviors, but they do communicate clearly a lack of assent. The BCBA is asking Abby to complete a task she expects Abby won't want to do to create an opportunity for her to demand for a break. This is a common and often vital part of what we do, but there might be some simple changes to her teaching methods that would honor Abby's assent withdrawal while also teaching the skill she's trying to learn. The BCBA is asking Abby to complete a task she expects Abby won't want to do to create an opportunity for her to demand for a break. This is a common and often vital part of what we do, but there might be some simple changes to her teaching methods that would honor Abby's assent withdrawal while also teaching the skill she's trying to teach. Let's watch the video clip again. Think about how the BCBA might change her approach. Could using errorless learning work to get Abby to the reinforcer that break more quickly? What if the BCBA simply responded to Abby's first indication of assent withdrawal by saying something like, "You're shaking your head no, telling me you don't want to put your pants away, you want a break. You can definitely have a break and we can try again in a few minutes."
All right, in 1 minute, we're gonna do some chores, okay? Here, you can have your pillow back.
Should we do timers, like audible timers?
Yeah, we could do a timer if I was thinking that too. I need you to come put your clothes in the hamper. I need you to put your pants away. Hey, let's put your pants away. You need to put your pants in the laundry. Do you need a break? Hey, do you need a break? Okay, here, give me one. Cool, you can take a break.
The BCBA and Abby's father want to teach her that she can only have a specific number of breaks before she actually has to complete the task. She has already mastered demanding for a break, and she will keep asking for breaks to avoid the task. They are using a laminated board that's sort of like a token board with a limited number of icons Abby can exchange for breaks. After the icons are gone, she's not allowed to ask for more breaks. On the surface, this seems like a great visual way to help Abby understand expectations. My question is, what happens when the tokens are gone after Abby is the BCBA and Abby's father want to teach her that she can only have a specific number of breaks before she actually has to complete the task. She has already mastered demanding for a break, and she will keep asking for breaks to avoid the tasks. They are using a laminated board that's sort of like a token board with a limited number of icons Abby can exchange for breaks. After the icons are gone, she's not allowed to ask for more breaks. On the surface, this seems like a great visual way to help Abby understand expectations. My question is, what happens when the tokens are gone if Abby still refuses to complete the task? Do they put all escape maintain behaviors on extinction? What would that look like in this situation? Teaching functional communication is a critical part of what we do. It really is one of the most important skills that we teach, but too often we stop at something very surface level without digging deeper. We might teach the learner to ask for a break when they don't want to do a task, which is a great skill, but then we must do the work to analyze why they don't want to do the task. I don't know about you, but even after a few years ago, I don't know about you, but even a few years ago, I would teach learners to ask for a break, then teach them that sometimes they might have to accept a delay to accessing that break. But I wouldn't dig any deeper than that. Sure, the strategy works, but it limits the learner's ability to self-advocate. They learn to escape tasks, but they don't learn to ask for modifications or accommodations. When implementing Assent-based practices, we become detectives who uncover the underlying reasons tasks are aversive for our clients. There are three main components to implementing Assent-based learning that I'm going to talk about. Functional communication training, which is teaching the self-advocacy statements. Reinforcement of escape maintain behavior. These behaviors are always reinforced and honored as though they were communication. And adapting the learning environment and contingencies. We are going to look to change the environment and contingencies so that we can elicit more Assent behaviors. When a learner engages in any of the Assent withdrawal behaviors we just talked about, honor their withdrawal by allowing them to end the activity and then reassess the situation. At this point, you're probably thinking, won't that reinforce the maladaptive behavior? The simple answer is yes, it will. What you want when using this model is to establish trust with your learner. You want the learner to know that you respect them and will listen to them, even when they aren't speaking. Ideally, you want to end activities at the first sign of Assent withdrawal, reinforcing the lower level behaviors before the learner feels the need to escalate to higher level, potentially dangerous behaviors. Teach the learner that their low level challenging behavior is enough to communicate and that you're listening. Over time, you will use FCT to teach the learner to communicate their Assent withdrawal using words, sign language, or another alternative form of communication. Assent withdrawal provides an opportunity to teach self-advocacy. Self-advocacy statements might include, I need help, I don't want to do this right now, I don't like the way you're teaching me, or I want to do it my way. Once you analyze what aspects of tasks the learner finds aversive, you can teach them to communicate more specifically. Next, identify what specifically in the environment, your teaching strategy or your relationship with the learner or the available contingencies that evoke Assent withdrawal. Consider, what is the learner responding to? Why don't they want to participate? Is the learning environment not fun? Is it boring? Has the learner been sitting too long? Is the task too hard? And do you need to work on rapport building? As you identify what evoked the assent withdrawal, consider ways to make changes that could evoke assent. Adapt the learning environment by changing the teaching style, instructor, stimuli, programs or targets, or the contingencies. Once you adapt your approach or the environment, try presenting the task again and check for assent. Some learners might need only a short break before you represent the task. Others will need a longer break that might be as long as a day or two before they might be willing to assent to the changes you've made. There are a lot of ways to improve the assent of your learners. Here are 3 examples, but the possibilities are limited only by your imagination. Try personalizing the environment. Adapt the learning space to be physically and socially conducive to the learner's comfort. This can include considerations for sensory preferences, providing choice of seating arrangements, and creating a positive and predictable atmosphere. Offering choices within activities. Present opportunities for choice making within the schedule of activities. This allows the learner to experience control over their environment and indicates their ongoing assent. Developing a responsive contingency plan. Construct a contingency plan that is sensitive to the signals of assent and withdrawal. Change available reinforcers and make sure that the learner's most preferred reinforcers are available for the tasks that the learner might be most reluctant to do. Analyze your learner's assent and assent withdrawal behaviors. Collect data to monitor how these behaviors relate to tasks presented in other variables in the environment. This is an example of a data sheet you could use to record assent and assent withdrawal. Make a list of the tasks presented during the session, and staff simply put a tally mark in the column that corresponds with the learner's response to the presentation of that task. Once you uncover the variables that impact your learner's assent, teach them to ask for specific modifications or accommodations. Think about even how they respond to small changes. Does the learner prefer to write with a pen rather than a pencil? Do they prefer activities that include specific characters? Do they prefer skill acquisition programs presented in an app rather than using pictures on a table? Do they prefer a more naturalistic approach? By analyzing and systematically evaluating the learner's assent and assent withdrawal responses as you make changes to the environment, you're developing a thorough understanding of how to gain your learner's assent and what communicative statements they could use to advocate for themselves. Let's look at one more video. This is again from Fathering Autism. This is a younger Abby doing some discrete trial work. She attended the Jacksonville School for Autism, and this type of work was a big part of her day. This video is from 2015, so the school has probably changed some of its practices. Again, watch for signs of assent and assent withdrawal. Let me know in the comments what you see. I'm going to pause the video to talk about some of these behaviors as they happen. So you could see even in this really beginning of the clip, how she's just kind of got limp arms. And I don't know if you could see the little like baby knock that she did. She's definitely not feeling this. So she's accepting the reinforcer. She's not excited by any of this. So did you catch that? She said, I like the way you're looking, but she wasn't actually looking at the picture. She just knows that she needs to touch the one that's a little bit higher. So this time she's got a little bit more of a smile on her face. These are words that she really likes. So she's just slightly more into it. So pay close attention to Abby's facial expressions and engagement now. Do you see her expression here? Were you able to see her expression there? She's super into this. She's got a smile on her face. She's definitely way more engaged. You can see from the beginning, she wasn't into this task. She's cooperative, but this is already not something that she's assenting to.
Thank you. Here. Good. Sleep. Next.
So Abby knows how to match. This is not a challenging task for her. And you can see that she's really just not even paying attention to it. Ask yourself, what is she actually getting out of this task? The therapist is doing a lot of the work for her. I don't really think that she's learning much of anything at all from this task.
Right. Yes. No, show me nothing. Candy. Sign candy. Yes, good. Sign cookie. Yes.
Did you notice some of the patterns in her assent and assent withdrawal behaviors? The video started with her sitting at the table, doing some listener responding tasks, and she was clearly not into it. She put as little movement into the task as possible. Her energy was low and her facial expressions looked bored or at most just neutral. Did you see the change in her behavior when the therapist had her stand up? She was a lot more engaged. You can see a change in her energy and facial expressions. She started looking at the therapist more. Her behaviors showed a much higher level of assent, and she was showing just than she was showing just 1 minute earlier. She's still doing listener responding tasks with the same therapist in the same place, but they shifted from a sedentary activity to something with more movement, and she responded much better. Another change in her assent that I observed in this video was when the therapist switched to name recognition. This is another listener task, and this time she's sitting down, so you might expect a similar response to what we saw at the beginning of the video, but she's actually showing a lot more assent than she was previously. She's smiling, she's attending, She's responding quickly with more energy. When analyzing these responses, think about why her responses to this task are different than the listener tasks at the beginning of the video. Does she prefer tasks that involve her name? Does she have a bit more energy after standing and doing the motor tasks? Does she feel like this task is more at her level? I have a learner who will respond accurately to 3-step directions if it's something that makes sense to him. For example, if I tell him, go to the table, grab your plate, put the trash in the trash can and put your plate in the sink, he will totally do it. But if I tell him to touch a picture of a dog in a field of 2, he gets it wrong nearly every time. He loves dogs and he can tack dog with his AAC device. So it's not because he doesn't know what a dog is. Also, I can present the task as a reading task and he will do it. So I have little cards and he knows how to match the letters in the word to the letters on the phonics page of his AAC device. And he will match the letters and then touch the sentence strip and it will say dog. And then he will choose in a field of 3, he will choose the dog. There's no way that he doesn't understand what I'm saying when I present it as just 3 stimuli. But maybe he sees that the task is beneath him or as completely ridiculous, so he just doesn't do it. He can't tell me yet, but if I present him with this type of task, he shows Assent withdrawal. He turns or even runs away, and he will push the pictures out of the way, or he just won't attend to the stimuli at all. So I stopped presenting these tasks. I'm not going to keep working on a program just to check a box in an assessment when it holds no value for him. If I want to test this out, to test out his understanding of the word, I just need to be more creative. I can take him for a walk and try to find a dog, or maybe we can find a video that has a dog in it. He might find these tasks more acceptable. If I present them in an app on his iPad, maybe I could change up the reinforcers available for the task if it was a program I thought was very highly valuable to him. There are a lot of ways to adapt your approach to evoke assent. One of the common misconceptions is that in an assent-based model, the learner can do whatever they want. And that's not actually the case. You're simply responding to their behavior, then getting to work to figure out why they responded the way they did. Your job is to change your approach to make it more acceptable. In this video, how did Abby respond to the task of setting the table? It was really just a matching task. Right from the beginning, she's sitting differently than she was with the other tasks. She's engaging in stereotypies and not attending to the task at all. Her vocalizations are happy, but she's clearly not present in the task. So how much do you think she's actually learning with this task? Probably not that much. How could they adapt the task to make it more acceptable to Abby? So here are some ideas, but I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments below. I might try having her stand up to do the task. I don't know about you, but I don't sit down when I set the table. And Abby seemed to respond so much better when she was up and standing. I might have her set the table for lunch, making sure that she had some of her favorite foods for lunch. Autistic children aren't different from the rest of us. I don't want to do a task just for the sake of doing a task. I'm much more likely to do it if it makes sense to me. I might also try finding a plate and cup and maybe even a fork and knife and spoon with her favorite characters. If I can't find one, I might try to make one with stickers or pictures that I can print out. She seems to love her name, so if she's not into a specific character, maybe I can get something with her name on it, or I can add her name to what we already had. You don't simply accept assent withdrawal and then represent the task in the same way another time. When the learner withdraws assent, it's an opportunity to become more engaging, creative, or motivating. Your learners will learn more, and you will see a reduction in escape maintain behavior. Now that we've had a chance to practice adapting the way we present interventions in that last video, I'd like to go back to this video of Abby and look at what we might be able to do differently. This video is very traditional ABA. This BCBA is doing nothing wrong. This is good science. It's good ABA, but like Paige said, good ABA can still be harmful. So let's take a look at what we might recommend doing differently from an Assent-based perspective.
Should we do timers at multiple times?
I need you to come put your clothes.
So you see Abby, she's shaking her head no. So right away, the BCBA, Abby knows exactly what the BCBA is going to ask of her, and she's already saying no. So what would happen if at this point we just said, I hear you, that you don't want to put your pants away right now. That's fine. You can have a break. She could potentially also ask that Abby exchange one of the tokens and use a prompt to get Abby to give her one of the tokens. But again, I don't know what happens when Abby runs out of tokens and still refuses to do a task. So I'm not sure that that's a beneficial intervention for Abby at this point. Although she's pretty cooperative, so she probably will just do it anyways and won't engage in problem behavior. But what happens if we look at this and say, maybe one of Abby's objections to this task is that she's nice and cozy on the couch and she doesn't feel like getting up and doing a task that doesn't make any sense. So her pants are just hanging out on the ledge above the living room, and there's no context to make this task make sense. So it might be more acceptable to Abby if the task was presented in context. So she takes her pants out of her backpack, maybe they're from school, and then has to go put them in the laundry. And she's doing it right away rather than just leaving them there. Or maybe it's happening in the context of doing laundry. She has to go and collect all of her clothes from around the house, and then she can do laundry. It maybe asking her during a normal transition time might be more acceptable to her. I work with a 31-year-old, and she's pretty, she will refuse to do most tasks if you interrupt her when she's doing a preferred task. So if she's hanging out on the couch, scrolling through her phone, and her mom says, hey, let's go do the dishes, she'll say no almost all of the time. But if we present it during a normal transition time, she will say yes most of the time. So those are some different ways that we might look at, even from this very beginning of this video clip, to make some adaptations to make this task more acceptable to Abby.
Need you to put your pants away.
You can see that she's looking away. This is a really good opportunity for the BCBA to recognize that Abby doesn't want to do this. It's situations like this that Paige really objects to. Abby may not be under a tremendous amount of stress, but doing this consistently to Abby and not considering what her perspective is can be traumatic to her over time.
You need to put your pants in there. Do you need a break? Do you need a break? You can take a break.
So do you have other ideas about how this BCBA could adapt the way she approaches Abby to make this task more acceptable to her? Now, granted, this BCBA is presenting a task that she knows Abby is going to be reluctant to engage in. And I think that there's some concern about that practice as well. I'm not trying to be at all critical of this BCBA. I just want to use this as an opportunity for us to step back and evaluate some common practices in our field and decide whether or not these practices are things that we want to go forward and continue. The integration of Assent into treatment planning is a key to fully integrating Assent-based methods into your practice. This demonstrates your commitment to fully adopting these methods and is required for ethical implementation. I'm going to quickly cover the 6 steps you will need to take to incorporate Assent-based methods into your treatment plans. The first step is understanding learner preferences. Begin by conducting a thorough assessment of your learners' likes, dislikes, communication styles, and ways of communicating Assent. Use a variety of assessment tools, including preference assessments and interviews with caregivers to gather comprehensive information. Develop a clear understanding of how your learner communicates Assent and dissent, considering both verbal and nonverbal cues. The second step involves collaborative goal setting. Work alongside the learner and their parents or caregivers to establish treatment goals that are both meaningful and achievable, ensuring these objectives respect the learner's preferences and autonomy. Present potential goals in an accessible format for the learner, encouraging their input. Facilitate a discussion that allows the learner to express their agreement or concerns regarding various goals if they have that level of communicative ability. The third step is to design the treatment plan. Create a treatment plan that incorporates the principles of Assent, tailored to the learner's specific needs and preferences. Design interventions that include regular opportunities for the learner to provide or withdraw Assent. Ensure that the plan outlines strategies for acknowledging and responding to both Assent and dissent effectively. The fourth step is transparent communication. Maintain an open line of communication with the learner and their caregivers, explaining the role of Assent in the treatment plan clearly and transparently. Use simple, clear language to describe the concept of Assent and its importance in therapeutic interventions. Provide examples of how Assent will be sought and honored during lessons. The fifth step is actually implementing the plan. Implementing the Assent-based treatment plan with flexibility, continually seeking and respecting the learner's Assent throughout the therapeutic process. Regularly check in with the learner to gauge their willingness to engage in specific interventions. Adjust the plan as necessary to accommodate the learner's changing preferences or responses. The final step is to review and adapt the plan as needed. Systematically review the effectiveness of treatment plan and Assent process, making adjustments as needed to better meet the learner's needs. Schedule periodic review sessions with the learner and their support network. Use direct feedback and data collection during sessions to inform any necessary amendments to the treatment plan. Before adopting the Assent-based model, you must get informed consent from parents or caregivers and train staff to utilize the strategies. It's critical to build a collaborative relationship with parents and facilitate their understanding of this approach. I'm going to cover a few strategies here, but if you're interested in learning more, I offer another course called The Act of Collaboration, using the ACT matrix to empower parents, that dives deeper into the subject, and you can earn another CEU for taking that course. I'll link to that course in the resources tab of this lesson. Here are strategies you can take to build a collaborative relationship and help parents understand the importance of implementing an Assent-based model. Begin the dialogue by recognizing the parents' perspectives and experiences. Their concerns are often rooted in deep deep commitment to their child's well-being. Validation serves as a cornerstone for building trust. Equip parents with a foundational understanding of what Assent entails and how it is observed and respected within the therapeutic setting. Clear, jargon-free explanations accompanied by visual aids such as infographics can enhance comprehension. Dismantle myths that equate Assent-based approaches with a lack of structure or goals. Clarify that these practices amplify the child's voice within a structured therapeutic framework aimed at achieving specific outcomes. Allow parents to provide feedback about what they feel is working or not working. This not only empowers them, but also provides invaluable insights that might enhance the effectiveness of the intervention. Involve parents in the goal-setting process. This inclusion increases their investment in the therapeutic process and aligns their expectations with the planned interventions. Use role-playing or video demonstrations to showcase specific techniques. Showcasing practical examples gives parents tangible strategies they can employ within the home environment. You can also demonstrate more traditional models with the parent playing the role of the child. This can help the parent understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of those traditional ABA practices. Seek to understand why parents may prefer traditional methods. This can be rooted in their past experiences or their perception of quicker, more visible outcomes. Acknowledge their perspective respectfully before introducing alternative views. Highlighting the tangible benefits of Assent practices is pivotal in illustrating their value to parents. These benefits include enhanced engagement, explain how respecting a child's preferences and Assent can lead to increased engagement in the therapy session, making learning more effective and enjoyable. Improve generalization, show how Assent-based interventions can foster a positive therapeutic relationship, can enhance the child's ability to generalize skills across settings and people. Emotional and behavioral benefits. Discuss how empowering children through Assent can lead to improvements in self-advocacy skills, emotional regulation, and overall well-being. Strengthen therapeutic alliance. Emphasize how Assent practices solidify the therapeutic alliance among the therapist, child, and family, creating a unified team working towards common goals. Remember, the parents have the right to informed consent for all aspects of treatment, including the inclusion of Assent-based practices. I explain these practices from the beginning. I talk about my use of more traditional methods early on in my career and how the change in my practices benefited the learners I have worked with in more recent years. Be patient with parents and give them time to adjust their expectations. This approach also requires well-trained staff to ensure that Assent withdrawal is honored and needed adaptations are incorporated into sessions. The foundation of Assent-based practices lies in the accurate observation and interpretation of Assent and Assent withdrawal behaviors. These behaviors can be subtle and vary greatly between learners. Training staff in this area focuses on developing a nuanced understanding of these behaviors within the context of each unique learner. Provide RBTs with a toolkit that includes observational checklists, data sheets, and an operational definition for identifying verbal and nonverbal cues of Assent and Assent withdrawal. Foster the development of interpretive skills through modeling and role play. Emphasize the importance of context and interpretation, considering factors such as the learner's history, the environment, and the specific activity or demand being presented. Provide training in modifying intervention strategies in real time, based on the learner's Assent or Assent withdrawal cues. This includes altering task demands, incorporating more preferred activities, and or pausing the intervention as necessary. Encourage RBTs to engage in guided observation sessions, followed by discussion and feedback from a BCBA. This iterative process is of observing, interpret, discuss, enhances confidence in identifying and respecting the assent and assent withdrawal cues of our learners. Teach RBTs how to use FCT as a tool to empower learners, enabling them to communicate their assent or dissent effectively. Emphasize the importance of reinforcing these communicative behaviors to promote self-advocacy. Finally, illustrate the importance of collecting data on assent and assent withdrawal behaviors and the effectiveness of assent-based modifications. Offer techniques for analyzing this data to make informed decisions about intervention adjustments between supervised sessions. With training, RBTs are empowered to make in-the-moment alterations to their approach to skill acquisition programs. As I said earlier, most parents and RBTs appreciate the assent-based model due to the reduction in serious challenging behavior, but some RBTs may have objections to using assent-based models in their practice, and some parents may be reluctant to allow challenging behavior to go without consequences. These objections can stem from a variety of concerns and perspectives. So here are some potential objections that parents and RBTs might have. A lack of familiarity. Parents and RBTs may be accustomed to traditional ABA methods that focus on compliance and behavior modification without considering the learner's assent. Implementing assent-based methods may require a shift in their approach or perception of how ABA works, which can be challenging for some parents and RBTs who are more familiar with traditional methods. Perceived time constraints. Parents and RBTs may feel that obtaining assent from learners could slow down the therapy process. They might worry that spending time on obtaining assent and allowing learners to withdraw assent could impede progress or disrupt the session's flow. Uncertainty about effectiveness. Some parents and RBTs may question the effectiveness of assent-based methods compared to traditional ABA techniques. They may be skeptical about whether obtaining assent and allowing learners to have more control over their treatment will lead to positive outcomes. They might have difficulty in identifying assent. Recognizing and interpreting nonverbal cues or behaviors that indicate assent can be challenging for RBTs, especially if they have limited experience or training in this area. They may feel uncertain about accurately identifying when a learner is providing assent or withdrawing assent. Concerns about reinforcing problem behavior. Parents and RBTs may worry that honoring a learner's assent withdrawal could reinforce problem behavior. They may fear that ending an activity when a learner withdraws assent might inadvertently reinforce the learner's escape maintain behavior, making it more challenging to address in the future. Resistance to change. Some RBTs may resist incorporating assent-based methods because they are comfortable with their current practices and may be resistant to change. They may prefer to stick to familiar techniques rather than adopting new approaches. You can take several steps to overcome objections and effectively integrate assent-based practices into your work. Here are some strategies you can employ. Education and training. Educate parents and your team members about the principles and importance of assent-based practices. This includes understanding the difference between consent and assent, as well as the ethical considerations involved. Incorporating assent into policies and practices. If you're in a position to do so, you should review and revise your organization's policies and practices to ensure that assent is considered throughout the assessment, treatment planning, and intervention process. This involves actively seeking ways to incorporate assent into all aspects of clinical practice. As the agency adopts this as a standard of practice, it becomes easier for RBTs to accept the change. Measurement and evaluation. Develop effective measurement techniques to assess Assent practices. This involves measuring a wide array of variables to discover what strategies work best and increase joy and participation with their learners. Model how regular evaluation of reflection on the data collected can inform future programming. Foster open discussion. Create an environment where the parents and RBTs feel safe and heard when they express concerns about implementing the Assent-based model. Reinforce all observed implementation. Recognize and reinforce every opportunity you observe where the RBT acknowledges Assent or Assent withdrawal. Consider setting individual goals with the RBT and provide some form of reinforcement for meeting specified criteria. A gift card for coffee or gas can be highly motivating for staff. By implementing these strategies, you can overcome objections and successfully integrate Assent-based practices into your work, promoting autonomy and respect for your learners. Before we end today, I want to review a few steps you can take to start incorporating Assent-based methods into your practice. If at all possible, it's best to implement Assent-based practices on an organizational level. This ensures that you have the support you need if you have questions, and it makes training staff significantly easier. The shift towards Assent-based practices begins with gaining our organizational support and understanding from all levels within your organization. This includes educating staff about the importance of Assent, ethical considerations, and the expected impact on practice, and developing a collective agreement or policy document that underscores the commitment to Assent-based practices, ensuring that all team members are aligned with this shift in practice. If this can't happen on an organizational level, at least right away, you can proceed without completing this step. I would recommend networking with other BCBAs who are implementing Assent-based practices. The next step is to develop and provide comprehensive training tailored to different roles within your team, focusing on how to effectively seek and incorporate Assent in their specific areas of work. Establish mechanisms for ongoing education and reflection, such as regular case discussions focused on Assent and ethical decision-making. Step 3 is to begin implementing Assent in your practice. Begin integrating Assent into assessment and treatment planning. Adjust your assessment processes to include evaluating how a learner provides and withdraws Assent. Plan interventions with opportunities for Assent built in. Operationalize Assent by translating the concept of Assent into tangible actions within the therapy environment. This can include creating visual choice boards, using technology to aid communication, and training staff to recognize nonverbal cues of Assent or dissent. Finally, develop a process to monitor and evaluate the implementation process. Implement systems to regularly collect and analyze data on how Assent-based approaches are impacting learner agreement and outcome measures. This could be through direct observation logs, learner feedback forms, and staff reports. Make iterative improvements based on the data you collect. Use the insights gained from monitoring efforts to make continuous adjustments. Encourage an environment of open feedback where staff can discuss challenges and share successes related to implementing Assent-based practices. By embracing Assent-based practices, you take a bold step towards a more compassionate and ethical way of working with your learners. You bring respect and dignity to the field, and as Greg Hanley says, you make ABA televisable. Change is never without hurdles, but think about the process you will make and the adjustments in your approach, and most importantly, the deepened connections with your learners. You will see firsthand how prioritizing their voice leads to more meaningful and engaged learning experiences. As you move forward, I challenge you to continue questioning, adapting, and learning. Keep the dialogue open with your learners, colleagues, and yes, with yourself too. What worked today might need tweaking tomorrow, and that's okay. It's all part of growing. both professionally and personally. And finally, empower your learners and yourself. You have the tools, the knowledge, and the compassion to make a significant impact. Never underestimate the value of the respect and trust you build through Assent-based practices. These are not just principles for the classroom or therapy sessions. They're principles for life. This isn't the end, it's merely a new beginning, a starting point from which to explore, to question more deeply, and to innovate in ways that respect and uplift those we serve. Stay curious, stay empathetic, and above all, stay committed to the beautiful journey of learning and teaching that honors every individual's autonomy and voice. And that wraps it up for today. I hope you are eager to jump into implementing Assent-based practices or to begin iterating the practice you've already started. If you're watching this for CEUs, you will need to complete the quiz at the bottom of this lesson. In the Mission Accomplished lesson, you will find information about how to change your BCBA number in your account. Please update this if needed before you make the lesson complete. And that wraps it up for today. I hope you are eager to jump into implementing Assent-based practices or to begin iterating the practice you've already started. If you're watching this for CEUs, you will need to complete the quiz at the bottom of the lesson. In the Mission Accomplished lesson, you will find information about how to change your BCBA number in your account. Please update this if needed before you mark the lesson complete. You will not receive your certificate until you mark the lesson complete. Your certificate will not be emailed to you. You can find it by logging into your account. There are instructions and an image to help you locate the certificate in that Mission Accomplished lesson. There's a brief survey also in that last lesson. Please take a minute to complete it and let me know what you thought of this course. It helps me improve the courses that I'm offering. Make sure to email us with any questions at support@masteraba.com. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you in the comments.